Hello friends and welcome to Star Tears. Today, we honor the lives of 6 extraordinary individuals who passed away on December 4th, 2025. Every life has a story. Every story carries influence. In this episode, we will explore the journeys and achievements of these 6 remarkable people, those who inspired generations and left lasting legacies. Let's begin with the first of these unforgettable lives. Sergey Konstantinovich Dubinin was one of those rare figures whose life traced the contours of a changing country. Born on October 10, 1950, in Moscow, he entered the world during a period when the Soviet Union appeared strong and unshakable. Yet, even as a child, Sergey sensed that beneath the surface lay complexities few fully understood. His parents, both well-educated and principled people, raised him with a deep respect for knowledge, discipline, and responsibility. These values would shape every chapter of his life. From an early age, Sergey gravitated toward mathematics. He loved patterns, logic, and the quiet thrill of discovering order where others saw noise. But it wasn't just numbers that fascinated him. It was the way they revealed the hidden mechanisms of society. When he later chose to study economics, it felt less like a decision and more like the natural path for someone who wanted to understand how a nation breathes, moves, and survives. At university, Dubinin quickly distinguished himself. He was not the loudest student, nor the most socially prominent, but he had a seriousness that commanded respect. Professors admired him for his ability to analyze complex systems with remarkable clarity, while classmates often turned to him for explanations when theories grew too tangled. He had a quiet confidence, the kind that came not from ambition but from a genuine love of learning. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, Sergey built a steady academic career. He contributed to economic research with precision and integrity, earning a reputation as a man who valued truth over convenience. His colleagues described him as unshakable, a scholar whose mind remained cool even when discussions grew heated. His writings during this period laid the foundation for what would become his central professional mission, helping to guide Russia's financial system through the storms that lay ahead. The collapse of the Soviet Union thrust Dubinin into the heart of a whirlwind. The Russian Federation was young, fragile, and struggling to redefine itself. The economy was unstable. Institutions were still forming. Chaos seemed to hover around every corner. It was during this turbulent era that Sergey Dubinin stepped into public service. With his calm demeanor and methodical thinking, he became a key figure in shaping monetary policy at a time when every decision carried profound consequences. As chairman of the Central Bank of Russia, Dubinin faced one of the most challenging periods in modern Russian finance. The country was battling inflation, political tension, and uncertainty at every level. It was a time when a single miscalculation could devastate millions. But Sergey never flinched. He approached each crisis with a quiet strength, analyzing the facts, weighing the risks, and choosing the path he believed would bring long-term stability rather than short-term comfort. People who worked with him often spoke of his unusual calm, a stillness that made him seem almost immovable. He rarely raised his voice. He never made impulsive decisions. Instead, he relied on discipline, consistency, and the belief that institutions must be stronger than the momentary storms they face. After leaving government service, Dubinin continued to play an important role in Russia's financial world. He worked in major corporations, served on boards, taught, and wrote extensively. He became a respected public intellectual, someone whose opinion was valued not because he sought attention, but because he had proven again and again that his insight came from deep experience and an unwavering commitment to the truth. As he grew older, Sergey never lost his intellectual curiosity. He remained engaged in economic debates, often reminding younger generations that financial systems are built not only on calculations, but on trust, integrity, and discipline. He believed that economists had a responsibility not merely to predict markets, but to protect people. Those who knew him personally remember a man of immense inner stability. He valued simplicity, routine, and thoughtful conversation. He was not dazzled by power or fame, he was driven by responsibility. His legacy is not only in the institutions he helped strengthen, but in the countless students, colleagues, and thinkers who continue to build on the foundations he laid. Sergey Dubinin's life reads like the story of a man who walked calmly through decades of storms, a steady presence in an unsteady time, and though the world around him transformed dramatically over the years, he remained true to the values he learned as a young boy: discipline, honesty, clarity, and service. Ted Egan was more than a singer, more than a writer, and more than a public servant. He was a living voice of the Australian outback, a storyteller whose songs carried the dust, humor, pain, and soul of the Northern Territory. Born on July 6, 1932, in the working-class suburbs of Melbourne, Ted came into the world far from the Red Desert, landscapes that would one day define him. Yet, from childhood, he felt irresistibly drawn to stories of the frontier, indigenous culture, and the rugged expanses of the North. It was as if he sensed, long before he ever traveled, that his spirit belonged in a land vast, wild, and endlessly rich with history. When he first set foot in the Northern Territory as a young man, Ted felt something click into place, a quiet recognition, an inner voice whispering, "This is home." The territory in the 1950s was raw and unforgiving. Its heat could flatten a man. Its distances swallowed the unprepared, and its communities, scattered like distant stars, lived lives shaped by hardship and resilience. But for Ted, it was everything he had been searching for. He worked as a stockman, a teacher, a patrol officer, a field guide, a community liaison. And with every job, he found new stories. What set Ted Egan apart was not merely his curiosity, but his deep respect. He listened. He observed. He learned. In indigenous communities, he was welcomed not as a visitor collecting experiences, but as a man who understood the importance of culture, memory, and voice. It was during these years that Ted began writing songs, not polished or theatrical, but raw, real, and full of heart. His music was grounded in truth, the struggles of Aboriginal Australians, the humor and hardship of bush life, the forgotten histories of frontier conflict, and the unseen bravery of ordinary people. His lyrics became a bridge between worlds, telling stories most Australians had never heard or never dared to confront. By the 1970s and 1980s, Ted's music had found a national audience. Albums like Outback Australia and The Drover's Boy cemented his reputation as one of the country's most important cultural storytellers. But Ted never sought celebrity. He remained always a man of the territory. Humble, sun-worn, approachable, happiest with a guitar in hand and red earth under his boots, his curiosity extended beyond music. Ted became a prolific writer, publishing books on Australian history, indigenous culture, folklore, and frontier life. He had a historian's rigor, a poet's ear, and the heart of a man who had seen the best and worst of human nature and understood both with compassion. In 2003, Ted Egan was appointed the 18th Administrator of the Northern Territory, an honor that reflected not political ambition but the profound respect he had earned from communities across the region. As Administrator, he represented the territory with dignity, humor, and authenticity. Robert B. Fiske was an American lawyer whose career became a blueprint of integrity, discipline, and unwavering dedication to the rule of law. Born on December 28, 1930, in New York City, he grew up during a time when public trust in institutions was shaken by war, political turbulence, and rapid social change. Yet, from an early age, Robert carried within him a quiet certainty that justice, when practiced with honesty and steadiness, could anchor even the most unpredictable world. After graduating from Yale University, and later from the University of Michigan Law School, Fiske stepped into the legal profession with a sharp mind and a sense of responsibility, uncommon even among his peers. He was not a man drawn to theatrics or headlines. Rather, he approached the law with a meticulous calm, convinced that truth revealed itself through patience, thorough work, and an uncompromising moral compass. As a young attorney, Fiske quickly earned a reputation for professionalism, and exceptional clarity in complex cases. His rise was steady, methodical, and grounded in merit. In 1976, he was appointed U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, one of the most demanding and high-profile legal posts in the country. There, he pursued cases ranging from corporate fraud to organized crime, always with the same measured determination. Colleagues admired his ability to remain focused under pressure, to look past public noise, and to isolate the essential facts that would guide him to the truth. But Robert F. Fiske became a household name decades later. In 1994, when he was appointed the first independent counsel to investigate the Whitewater controversy involving President Bill Clinton. It was a moment that would test not only his legal skill, but his character. The case was politically charged, heavily scrutinized, and surrounded by partisan tension. Fiske did what he had always done. He worked, quietly, methodically, without bending to political winds. He pursued leads, evaluated evidence, and refused to be influenced by pressure from any direction. Those who worked with him described him as disciplined to the core, a man whose loyalty was not to power or influence, but to the law itself. Although his term as independent counsel ended abruptly when he was replaced during a shift in oversight authority, Fiske handled the transition with the same composure that had defined his entire career. He returned to private practice, where he continued to be regarded as one of the most respected attorneys of his generation. Clients trusted him, young lawyers admired him, and judges valued his meticulous preparation and fairness. Outside the legal arena, Robert Fiske was known for his humility. He avoided the spotlight, preferring the quiet satisfaction of work done well. He mentored younger colleagues, offering guidance shaped not by ego but by decades of hard-earned experience. Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa was a Japanese-American actor, martial artist, and cultural figure whose presence on screen was unmistakable. Born on September 27, 1950, in Tokyo, he came into the world at the intersection of two identities. His father, a Japanese-American soldier serving in the U.S. Army, and his mother, a Japanese actress and performer, created a home filled with both discipline and artistry. From the earliest years, Tagawa learned to balance these influences, the strict posture of the military and the expressive world of theater. Because his father was in the service, Tagawa spent much of his childhood moving from one place to another. Japan, the continental United States, military bases across various countries, each became a temporary home. This constant motion, instead of unsettling him, sharpened his instincts. He learned to observe people closely, to adapt quickly, and to understand the subtle differences between cultures. These early experiences would one day become the foundation of his acting craft. During his teenage years, he discovered a passion for martial arts, initially as a way to stay grounded amid constant change. What began as physical training soon became a philosophy for him, a path toward focus, respect, and inner balance. At the same time, he gravitated toward performance, influenced by the presence of theater and storytelling in his home. By the time he enrolled at the University of Southern California, he was already torn between several worlds: political science, physical discipline, and the lure of the stage. Eventually, acting won. Tagawa began auditioning, taking on small television roles, commercials, and appearances in action-oriented films. Hollywood at the time offered limited opportunities for Asian actors, often relegating them to narrow and stereotypical portrayals. But Tagawa refused to play characters without weight or intention. Even in the smallest roles, he brought precision, dignity, and a grounded stillness that made directors take notice. His breakthrough came through a series of high-profile film appearances in the late 1980s and early 1990s. He appeared in The Last Emperor, License to Kill, Showdown in Little Tokyo, and Rising Sun, earning a reputation as an actor with extraordinary presence, a man who could communicate emotion with the smallest movement or glance. His characters were often dangerous, calm, and enigmatic, but Tagawa approached each one with an inner life that audiences could feel. Then, in 1995, he took on the role that would define his global legacy, Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat. With a single phrase, "Your soul is mine," he became an icon of pop culture. His performance blended theatricality, martial arts discipline, and a chilling elegance that instantly set the standard for video game villains brought to life. For millions of viewers, Tagawa was not simply playing the character, he was Shang Tsung. Yet the man behind the character was far different. Outside the spotlight, Tagawa was philosophical, quiet, and deeply curious about the human spirit. He continued his study of martial arts, not as a profession but as a way of life. Over the years, he explored spiritual teachings, eventually converting to Christianity. A decision he described not as a shift away from his heritage, but as a widening of his path toward compassion and understanding. In the 2000s and 2010s, he moved into increasingly complex and emotionally rich roles. In Memoirs of a Geisha and Hachi, A Dog's Tale, he showed a gentler, more introspective side. But his most acclaimed performance came in the television series, The Man in the High Castle, where he portrayed Trade Minister Nobusuke Tagomi. Here he played a man torn between duty, morality, and a longing for a more peaceful world. Tagawa's ability to convey sorrow, resolve, and spiritual depth made the character unforgettable. Throughout his life, Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa remained grounded. He mentored younger actors, supported martial arts communities, and frequently spoke about the importance of cultural understanding. Whether he was playing a villain, a leader, or a quiet observer, he approached every role with seriousness and respect, believing that stories, like people, deserved truth. His journey from a traveling military child to an international star was not just a career path, but a testament to discipline, adaptability, and the power of identity. Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa's legacy is not merely in the characters he portrayed, but in the dignity and presence he brought to every frame of film. Tetsu Yamauchi was a Japanese musician, best known as the bassist, who stepped into the spotlight of one of rock's most iconic eras. Born on October 21, 1946 in Fukuoka, Japan, he grew up surrounded by music long before he ever touched an instrument. His childhood was filled with the sounds of jazz clubs, radio pop, and the rapidly evolving music scene of post-war Japan. From an early age, he felt drawn not to center stage, but to the deeper, grounding pulse that held every song together: the bass. As a teenager, Yamauchi began playing in small local bands, experimenting with jazz, rhythm, and blues, and the new wave of Western rock music that was sweeping through Japan. While many of his peers dreamed of becoming guitarists or vocalists, Tetsu was fascinated by the quieter power of the bass, the instrument that shaped the emotional backbone of a song. His talent quickly became impossible to overlook. By the late 1960s, he had joined the band Samurai, followed by the Wrecking Crew, gaining early recognition for his versatility and unique tone. His first major breakthrough came when he joined the Faces in 1973, stepping into the band during one of its most turbulent and creative phases. Replacing a bassist as iconic as Ronnie Lane was no easy task, but Yamauchi approached the challenge with humility and confidence. He brought a smooth, melodic bass style that blended seamlessly into the group's bluesy, soulful energy. Though his time with the Faces was relatively short, he left an imprint on the band's final chapter, contributing to tours and recordings that fans still remember with affection. His next defining moment arrived in 1974, when he joined the Rolling Stones during the recording of their album, It's Only Rock and Roll. Although he was not a permanent member, his involvement marked a rare moment: a Japanese musician stepping into one of the most famous rock bands in the world. His fluid playing and easygoing personality made him a natural fit in the studio, and he became part of the Stones' orbit during a period of change and experimentation. Despite his growing success in the Western rock world, Yamauchi remained deeply connected to his Japanese roots. After leaving the spotlight of British and American rock, he eventually returned to Japan, choosing a quieter, more private life. For many years, he lived away from public attention, rarely giving interviews or participating in retrospectives. Some fans were surprised by his decision, but to those who knew him, it was completely natural. Tetsu had always been more interested in music than in fame. The stage lights had never been the point. The craft was. His later years were spent in Fukuoka, where he embraced a simple, peaceful routine far from the whirlwind of his earlier career. Yet his influence lived on. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel. Many more stories await.